In Mexico, there are surnames that it is better not to hear. Surnames that mean power, protection, and consequences. And that August afternoon, in a simple taco stand, three young men heard one of those surnames. But it was already too late. This, that I am going to tell, circulated for years in a little town in Jalisco. There are those who swear by it, others who deny it, and some who only whisper it when there is no one around. It was never fully confirmed, but the older people, those who lived those days, that something happened, something that changed everything in a matter of hours. It was like any August afternoon of 2017. Sticky heat, dust in the streets, dogs lying in the shadows. In the center of the town, there was a taco stand that had been there for like 30 years, one of those where everyone knows each other, and where the lady who serves you treats you like you were her nephew, even if she has never seen you. That day, three young guys arrived, according to what they said, 20-somethings maybe. They arrived in a black truck with tinted windows, one of those that everyone knows it is better not to look at too much. They parked in double file without caring about anything. They got out laughing, talking loudly, with that attitude of someone who believes the world owes them something. There were people eating, families, children, a couple of old people who always went on Tuesdays. And at a table in the back alone was an older lady, small, thin, with her hair tied in a bun. She wore a gray sweater, even though it was hot. She ate slowly in silence, looking towards the street as if she were waiting for someone. The guys ordered food, sat at the table next to the lady. They started talking loudly, profanities, laughter. One of them threw a napkin on the floor and did not even bend down to pick it up. The owner of the stand looked at them uncomfortably, but said nothing. No one said anything. Then, one of them, the noisiest, turned towards the older lady. He said something to her, something about her moving, that they wanted that table. The lady did not even look at him. She continued eating. The guy insisted, raised his voice, his friends laughed. The people around lowered their gaze. Some paid quickly and left. The lady finished her taco, wiped her hands with a napkin. And that was when, according to what they say, the first strange thing happened. The guy got up, walked towards her, and took the plate from in front of her. He threw it to another table. The lady raised her gaze, looked him directly in the eyes, and said something. Something in a low voice that only he could hear. No one knew exactly what it was, but the guy changed. His face became serious. He stayed still. His friends shouted something to him from the other table, but he did not respond. He just kept looking at the lady. She got up slowly, left some bills on the table, and walked towards the exit. She walked slowly, without hurry, as if nothing had happened. The guys stayed there a while longer. They no longer talked. They no longer laughed. They paid and left. The truck started and disappeared down the road. The owner of the stand cleared the tables in silence. No one commented anything at that moment, but that same night, the rumors started. It was said that someone had seen that truck parked on the outskirts of the town, near a vacant lot. Others swore they had heard voices, arguments. Someone else commented that they saw movement of vehicles in the middle of the early morning, coming and going along the same road. But they were just comments, nothing concrete. The next day, the three guys did not appear either the next day or the week. The black truck was never seen again in the town. People started asking questions. Who were they? Where did they come from? No one knew. Or if they knew, they did not say. But what did start to circulate was something else. A name, a surname. Someone said that the older lady, the one who ate alone at the taco stand, had mentioned her surname before leaving. And that surname, according to what they said, was known. very known. In certain circles, in certain areas, that surname meant something, something that it was better not to ask. There are those who assure that one of the boys from the stand, the one who cleans the tables, managed to hear when the lady responded to the guy who was bothering her. Presumably, she said something like, "My grandson is going to want to know who disrespected me today." And then she mentioned the surname. That was all, nothing more. But that surname, that simple surname, apparently was enough. Because according to what was commented in a low voice, that surname belonged to a family that had been in the region for decades. A family that did not appear in newspapers, that did not make noise, but that everyone knew. One of those families that are not talked about in public, that you know exist, but pretend not to know anything. The lady, according to the rumors, was the grandmother of someone important, someone who had grown up in that town, who knew every street, every family, every name. Someone who had left years ago, but who never cut ties. Someone to whom, presumably, it was not liked that they touched his people. The days passed, the town continued the same, the tacos continued to be sold, the people continued with their routine. But there was something different in the atmosphere, a tension that was not seen but felt, like when you know that something has already happened, but they still do not tell you what. A neighbor who worked at the gas station commented that he saw several trucks with plates from another state pass by. They went slowly as if they were looking for something or someone. Another said that he heard helicopters in the early morning flying low with lights off, but no one confirmed anything. They were just things that were said. What did happen, and this was seen by more people, was that the black truck appeared abandoned like 20 kilometers from the town. Burned, completely burned. The authorities arrived, took photos, asked questions. No one knew anything, or no one wanted to know. And here is where the story gets more confusing, because very different versions started to circulate. Some swore that the three guys appeared days later in another state, alive, scared, asking for protection. Others said that they were never heard from again, and there were those who assured that someone saw them get on a bus heading north, quiet, with lost gaze. The truth is that no one knew for sure what happened that night after the lady left the taco stand. The only clear thing is that something changed, and that something had to do with a surname. But before continuing, I need you to understand something. This is not a story of heroes. It is not a story where someone did justice and everyone lived happily. This is about fear, about power, about how a single word can change everything in seconds. Because what came after, according to what they say, was worse than anything that had happened that night. About 2 weeks passed. The town continued calm in appearance. The older lady returned to the taco stand one Tuesday afternoon. She sat at the same table, ordered the same. She ate in silence. No one approached her. No one spoke to her. They just looked at her out of the corner of their eye, with a mixture of respect and something else, something that resembled fear. The owner of the stand served her without charging. The lady left money anyway, more than it cost, and left the same as always, walking slowly, without hurry, as if nothing. But people started talking more. They started to reconstruct things, to remember details. Someone mentioned that that lady had lived her whole life in the town, that she had raised her children alone after her husband disappeared in the 80s, that one of her grandsons had gone north very young and did not return. Well, he did not return to live there, but it was said that he continued pending, very pending. The rumor ran that that grandson had made a name for himself in certain environments, that he had risen quickly, that he had people in his charge, that he handled important things, but they were just rumors. It was never confirmed anything. It never appeared in the news. It was one of those names that are only mentioned in a low voice among trusted people. And presumably, that grandson had a very clear rule. What happened with the three guys from the taco stand was never fully clarified, but more details started to appear. Small fragments that people were putting together like a puzzle. A worker from a nearby ranch commented that he saw strange movement that night. Trucks entering and leaving, lights, voices. But when dawn broke, everything was the same, as if nothing had happened. Only a strange smell remained in the air. He said, like burned. Another neighbor who sold fruit on the road swore that he saw a black truck with broken windows pass by. It was going fast, swaying. Inside were two people, maybe three. He could not see their faces, but he did notice that one of them had a torn shirt. He went slowly because he was scared that they would see him looking. But the most chilling, what really made people shut up completely, was something that happened like a month later. A guy arrived in the town alone in an old car. He asked about the three young men. He said they were his cousins, that the family was looking for them, that if anyone knew anything. People told him no, that they had left, that no one knew anything. The guy insisted, went to the taco stand. He talked to the owner. She told him the same, that they arrived, ate, left, nothing more. The guy asked about the older lady. The owner got nervous. She told him she did not know who he was talking about. The guy insisted. Someone must have told him something because he mentioned the surname. The surname of the lady. The owner stayed quiet. She told him it was better to leave, not to ask more questions. The guy got angry, raised his voice, said he was going to find out what had happened, that he was not going to leave things like that. He left the town that same afternoon, and, according to what they say, he never arrived at his destination. His car appeared abandoned on the road, like 50 kilometers away. The doors open, the keys in, nothing more. The authorities investigated, but found nothing, no trace, no clues, as if the earth had swallowed him. And that was when the town understood something. Something that no one said out loud, but everyone thought. It was not just about those three guys, it was about a message. A message for anyone who thought about doing the same. Because, presumably, what happened that night was not an impulsive act. It was not an immediate reaction. It was something planned. Something that took hours, maybe days, and whatever they found after, whatever remained, was left there on purpose, so that it would be known, so that the word would spread. But no one saw anything, no one heard anything, and no one, absolutely no one, was going to confirm anything. What did start to be noticed was a change in the atmosphere. The people of the town became more careful, more respectful, especially with the elders, with the ladies who walked alone, with the old people who sat on the benches in the square. Because you never knew. You never knew who was who. You never knew from what family someone came. You never knew what surname they carried. And after what happened, no one wanted to risk it. There were those who said that everything was exaggerated, that people were inventing things, that the three guys simply had left on their own, that the burned truck was from another matter, that the disappearances had nothing to do, but there was something that did not add up, something that made the official version not convince anyone. And that something was the silence of the authorities, the silence of the family of the young men, the silence of all those who supposedly knew something. Because when something like that happens, normally there is scandal, there are investigations, there are protests, there are families demanding answers. But in this case, there was none of that. Only silence. A heavy silence that said more than any word. And in the midst of that silence, the older lady continued with her life. She went to the market on Thursdays, to the taco stand on Tuesdays, to church on Sundays, always alone. always in silence. She greeted with a nod of the head, paid in cash, and left. No one asked her anything. No one approached her too much. They just observed her with respect, with fear, with that strange mixture of admiration and terror that is only felt when you know that someone has power. A power that does not need to be demonstrated because everyone already knows it. But what no one expected was what was going to happen after. Something that was going to confirm all the suspicions, something that was going to make the story take a turn that no one saw coming. And believe me, when I tell you that what comes is the part where everything makes sense, where all the pieces start to fit, where you understand why the people of the town never were the same again. Because what was discovered weeks later, what someone found, and what should never have been found, changed the perception of everything, of the lady, of the grandson, of what really had happened that night. But to understand that, you need to know something more, something that happened years ago, something that explains why that surname meant what it meant, and why no one, absolutely no one, wanted to mess with that family. 20 years before, in the 90s, that town was different, smaller, poorer, more forgotten. People lived off what they could. Agriculture, small commerce. Some went north to work and sent money. That is how they survived. At that time, the family of the older lady was one more of the bunch. They had nothing special. The husband worked in the field. She attended a little store in her house. They had 3 children. Normal life, difficult life, but normal. Until one day the husband did not return. He left early to the field and never came back. They looked for him, asked nothing. He simply disappeared. They never knew what happened. If he left, if something happened to him, if someone took him. Nothing. The lady was left alone with 3 children. The oldest was like 15, the middle one 12, the youngest 8. And according to what they say, that was when everything changed for them, because the lady did not give up, did not ask for help, did not leave the town. She started working, doubled, tripled the shifts in the little store. The children also started working from young. The oldest went north as soon as he turned 17, promised to send money, and fulfilled. But presumably the oldest did not go to work in the field like the majority. He went to something else, and that something else gave him money. A lot of money, more than anyone in the town had ever seen. He started sending bills every month, then every week, then amounts that made no sense for someone who was supposedly cleaning houses or mowing lawns. The lady never asked, just received the money, saved it, and continued working. The other 2 children grew up. One dedicated himself to the business, opened a hardware store, did well. The other also went north, but did not last long. He returned to the town and started working with his brother. Quiet life. But the oldest, the one who had left first, that one never returned to live in the town, only visited from time to time. He arrived in new trucks with people, with expensive clothes. He greeted everyone, distributed money, stayed a few days, and left. No one asked where he got all that from. No one wanted to know. And with time that oldest son had children. One of them, the oldest also, turned out to be like his dad, restless, ambitious, intelligent, and, according to the rumors, equally dangerous. That grandson, about whom so much was talked, but about whom no one knew anything for sure, presumably had inherited everything, the business, the contacts, the power. And he had also inherited something more, the love for his grandmother. Because, according to what they say, that grandson as a child spent seasons with the grandmother in the town. She took care of him when his dad could not, taught him things, told him stories, fed him, and he, even as a child, already showed signs that he was going to be someone important. He was one of those children who did not cry, who observed, who learned quickly, who did not forget. And when he grew up, when he took charge of what his dad had built, there are those who assure that he made a promise. His grandmother was never going to suffer. No one was going to touch her. No one was going to disrespect her. And if someone did, they were going to pay. No matter who it was, no matter where they came from. The rule was clear, and that was exactly what happened that day at the taco stand. Returning to that night of August of 2017. Now, with this context, everything starts to make more sense. When the lady told her surname to the guy who was bothering her, she did not do it to show off. She did not do it to threaten. She did it to give him a chance, a last chance to retract, to apologize, to leave. But the guy did not understand, or did not want to understand, and his friends neither. According to some versions, what happened after was almost instantaneous. Presumably, someone from the town who was at the taco stand called someone else. That someone called another, and that other called the grandson, all in a matter of minutes. It is not known what they told him exactly, but apparently the response was immediate. Where are they? What is the truck like? Where did they go? And then, do not move. I am on my way there. But the grandson was not in the town. He was hours away. So he sent someone else, someone trusted, someone who knew what to do. And that same night, presumably, the three guys were intercepted. It is not known where exactly. Some say on the road, others at the motel where they had stayed, others at a gas station. The truth is that at some point, someone caught up with them. And what happened after, well, of that, there are only versions. Versions that change depending on who tells them, but all agree on something. The guys understood their mistake too late, but they understood it. There are those who assure that they gave them a chance, that they told them, ask for forgiveness and get out. Do not come back. Do not talk about this. And presumably, that was what happened. The guys asked for forgiveness, crying, trembling, swearing that they did not know, that it was a mistake, that it was not going to happen again, and they let them go, but with a warning that, according to what they say, was very clear. If someone asks what happened, if someone comes looking for revenge, if someone tries to do something against the family, you already know what is going to happen. The guys left, disappeared, never returned to the town, never returned to the region, and according to some, never were the same again. But there is another version, a darker version, one that says that there was no second chance, that what happened that night was definitive, irreversible, that the guys made the mistake of responding badly when they were asked if they knew who the lady was, that they insulted, that they threatened, and that sealed their fate. This version says that what they found after in that vacant lot, in that place that no one wanted to mention, was something that made even the authorities look the other way. Something that left the message clear. Something that left no room for doubt about what happens when someone touches that family. But no one confirmed that version. No one denied it either. It just circulated like a ghost, like a silent warning that everyone understood without need for words. And the worst of all, what really gives goosebumps is that presumably the grandson never arrived at the town that night. He never was there. He never got his hands dirty. He just gave the order, and someone else executed it. That is how well-mounted his structure was. That is how efficient his people were. The months passed. The town returned to its routine. The lady continued going to the taco stand on Tuesdays, to church on Sundays, to the market on Thursdays. Always the same, always calm. But something had changed in the way people saw her. She was no longer just the little old lady who had raised her children alone. She was no longer just the lady from the little store. She was something more. She was a symbol, a reminder, a living warning that in that town some families were untouchable. And the curious thing is that she never changed her attitude, never became arrogant, never showed off anything. She continued being the same kind lady who greeted everyone, who helped when she could, who went to Mass and prayed for everyone. But everyone knew, everyone understood, and that was enough. There was a moment, like a year after what happened, that someone new arrived in the town. A young guy from another state arrived looking for work. He stayed in a guest house. He started working in construction. One day that guy went to the taco stand. It was full. The only available table was one where the older lady was sitting. The guy approached and asked her if he could sit. The lady nodded with a smile. They sat together. The guy ordered food. The lady was finishing her plate. There was a moment of awkward silence. The guy, trying to be kind, asked her, "Are you from here in the town, lady?" The lady smiled. "All my life," responded the guy. He nodded. "It looks calm. I like it." "Yes," said the lady. "It is calm, as long as you respect the people." The guy did not understand the weight of those words. He just nodded and continued eating. But the owner of the stand, who was nearby, did understand. And when the guy left, she approached the lady and asked her in a low voice, "Everything okay, lady?" The lady nodded. "Everything okay. He is new. He does not know. But he is going to learn." And effectively, someone explained to the guy. Not directly, not with details. They just told him, "That lady is the grandmother of someone important. Treat her well. Do not mess with her. And if you see her somewhere, greet her with respect." The guy understood. And from that day, every time he saw the lady, he greeted her with an almost exaggerated reverence. But it was the way to show that he had understood the lesson. But the story does not end there, because what happened after was something that no one expected, something that made this whole story be talked about again in the town, something that confirmed what everyone suspected, but no one dared to say. It was like 2 years later, in 2019, the grandson, the one who supposedly handled everything from afar, the one who never appeared, but about whom everyone talked, returned to the town. It was not a normal return. He did not arrive by surprise. He did not arrive quietly. He arrived with everything, with trucks, with people, with movement, and he arrived because his grandmother was sick. The older lady had started to feel bad weeks ago. Dizziness, tiredness. The children took her to the town doctor. The doctor said she needed more specialized studies. They took her to the city. The studies came out bad, very bad. Cancer, advanced. The doctors said maybe months, maybe weeks. It depended on many things. The family went into shock. The children did not know what to do. They cried, prayed, looked for second opinions, but the results were the same. And then the grandson found out. Presumably, when they gave him the news, he said nothing. He stayed quiet, hung up the phone, and started to move everything he had to move to return to the town. He arrived 3 days later with a caravan of trucks. He arrived directly at the grandmother's house. He entered alone. He was with her like 2 hours. No one knew what they talked about, but when he came out, according to what they say, he had red eyes. He gathered the family, told them he was going to bring the best doctors, that he was going to pay whatever was necessary, that his grandmother was not going to leave like that they were going to try everything, and he fulfilled. He brought doctors from the city, from other states, even from other countries, according to some rumors. He paid very expensive treatments, paid medicines that were not even available in Mexico, paid everything. The lady started the treatment. The first months were hard, very hard. She lost her hair, lost weight, looked fragile, but continued fighting. And the grandson did not separate from her. He stayed in the town those weeks, something unusual in him. And it was during that time that the people of the town could get to know him more. He was not like they imagined. He was not an aggressive guy. He was not someone who went around showing off. He was calm, educated, greeted people, helped when he could. But everyone knew who he was. Everyone knew what he was capable of. And that duality, that contradiction between the loving grandson and the dangerous businessman, was what disconcerted the most. There was a particular moment that people remember. It was a Sunday in church. The lady wanted to go to Mass despite being weak. The grandson accompanied her. They sat in the back benches. He with his simple clothes, his cap, his dark glasses. The father gave the homily. He talked about forgiveness, about redemption, about how it is never too late to change. And while he spoke, some people turned discreetly towards where the grandson was, wondering if perhaps he understood the message, if perhaps he cared. When the Mass ended, the grandson helped his grandmother to get up. They walked slowly towards the exit, and at the door, the father was waiting for them. He greeted the lady with affection, and when he turned towards the grandson, there was a moment of tension. The father extended his hand. The grandson took it. They greeted in silence, without words, only a look that lasted seconds, but that said everything. The father nodded, the grandson also, and each one continued their way. The treatments worked for a time. The lady improved, recovered energy, returned to her routine. The grandson left the town again, but continued calling every day. He continued sending money for anything she needed. And the town continued its life, but with a renewed certainty, with a deeper understanding of how things worked, of who had power, of who pulled the strings. Because what people understood during that time was something that goes beyond fear or respect. They understood that that grandson, that man about whom so much was talked, but whom few really knew, was capable of the best and the worst. He was capable of moving heaven and earth for his grandmother, but he was also capable of making disappear whoever messed with his family. And that duality, that capacity to love deeply and at the same time be implacable, was what made him really dangerous, because he did not act out of cruelty, he did not act out of pleasure, he acted out of loyalty, out of protection, out of a code of his own that only he understood. And in a certain way that was worse, because against someone cruel you can defend yourself, against someone irrational you can predict, but against someone who has a code, who has clear rules, who is consistent in his way of acting, there is no defense, only obedience. The town understood it, accepted it, and moved forward. But what no one knew was that the story was going to have one more turn, a last chapter that was going to close everything in an unexpected way. And that chapter was about to be written, because it turns out that one of those three guys from the taco stand, the one who had directly bothered the lady, had not disappeared as everyone thought. Presumably, he had been hidden all this time in another state, with another identity, trying to forget what had happened. But fear is not forgotten, and guilt neither. And what that guy did years later, what he decided to do to try to redeem himself, or to try to find peace, was going to finally reveal what really happened that night of August of 2017. But that is something that needs to be told with more detail, with more care, because what comes now is the part where everything connects, where all the pieces finally fit, where you understand that this story was never about revenge. It was about consequences. It was about decisions. It was about the weight of disrespecting whom you should not. It was 2021. 4 years after what happened, the older lady was still alive. The cancer had gone into remission. The doctors called it a miracle. The family called it a blessing. But everyone knew that it had also been the result of the money, of the treatments, of the constant care. Life in the town continued the same routines, the same faces, the same secrets that everyone knew, but no one mentioned. And then a letter arrived. It was not to the official mail. It arrived in the hands of one of the sons of the lady. They delivered it in a manila envelope, without sender, without name, only a handwritten sheet. The son opened it, read it, turned pale, called his brother. The two read it together, and then called the grandson. The letter said something like this, according to those who supposedly saw it. I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness. I know there is no way to fix what I did. But I need you to know that I have not had peace since that day. That every night I think about your mom, about your grandmother, about how I treated her, and about what happened after. I do not ask that you forgive me. I do not ask that you look for me, or that you find me. I just want you to know that I regret it. That if I could go back in time, I would change everything. That day I lost more than my dignity. I lost my humanity. Your friends did not have the same luck as me. I cannot say more. But they paid for my mistake, and that is something I carry every day. If your grandmother still lives, tell her that I am sorry, that I did not know, that I was an idiot, and that I hope that someday, in some way, she can forgive me. Signed, someone who learned too late. The letter had no date, no address. There was no way to track where it came from, but the content was clear, very clear. The sons did not know what to do with that. They showed it to their mom. They gave it to the grandson. They burned it and pretended it never arrived. They decided to show it to the grandson first. He arrived in the town 2 days later, read the letter in silence, read it twice, and then asked, "Has my grandmother seen it?" "No," the sons responded. "We wanted you to decide." The grandson stayed thinking. He looked at the letter, looked towards the window, looked at the floor, and after a while said something that no one expected. "Give it to her. She decides." The sons looked at each other, confused. "Are you sure?" "It is her forgiveness that he seeks, not mine. Let her decide if she wants to give it or not." They gave the letter to the lady. She read it slowly in silence. When she finished, she folded it carefully and kept it in her bureau. She said nothing that day, nor the next, nor the following. About a week passed. The sons were restless. The grandson was in the town waiting, and then one Tuesday afternoon, the lady went to the taco stand alone as always. She sat at her usual table, ordered the same as always, and when she finished eating, she called the owner, gave her an envelope. "If someday someone comes asking for me," she said, "give him this." The owner took the envelope without asking. The lady paid and left. No one knew what that envelope said. No one ever came to look for it. Maybe it is still kept there in some drawer of the taco stand. Maybe the owner threw it away. Maybe she opened it and read it. It is not known. But what did happen was something more, something that closed the circle in an unexpected way. Like a month after that, a body appeared in another state, far from the town, identified as one of the 3 young men who had disappeared years ago. The body was in a river. Presumably, it had been there for time. The authorities said it was an accident, that he drowned, that there were no signs of anything else. But the family of the young man did not believe it. They demanded investigation, demanded answers, and then, mysteriously, they stopped demanding, stopped making noise, accepted the official version, and buried the body. What happened? Did they tell them something? Did they pay them? They threatened them. No one knows. The only thing that is known is that after that, the topic was never talked about again. No more bodies appeared. No more letters arrived. Everything remained in silence, and that silence was the answer. That silence was the confirmation. That silence was the final point of a story that was never told completely, but that everyone understood. Today, in 2026, the older lady is still alive. She has already passed the 80s. She continues going to the taco stand on Tuesdays. She continues walking slowly through the town. She continues being the same kind lady as always. The grandson continues handling his businesses from afar. He visits from time to time, always brings gifts, always greets everyone, always stays a few days and leaves. The town continues calm, continues being the same place where everyone knows each other, where life passes slowly, where secrets are kept well and lessons are learned in silence. And the story of those 3 young men who mocked a little grandmother at a taco stand continues being that. A story, a rumor, a warning, an urban legend that is told in a low voice when someone new arrives in the town and needs to understand how things work. Because in the end, the lesson was clear, simple, direct. No matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter how much power you think you have, always, always, you have to respect people, especially the elders, especially those who seem defenseless. Because you never know from what family they come, you never know what surname they carry, you never know who is waiting for someone to disrespect them to teach a lesson. And when you find out, when you finally understand, it is already too late, as it happened to those 3 young men, how it almost happened to the cousin who came to look for them, how it would have happened to anyone who had tried the same. Because in that town, in that forgotten place in Jalisco, where life passes slowly and time seems to stop, there is an unwritten rule, a rule that everyone knows, a rule that no one dares to break. And that rule says, do not mess with the wrong family. Do not mock whom you do not know. Do not assume that someone is alone, just because you see them alone. Because behind that little grandmother who eats tacos in silence, behind that older lady who walks slowly through the town, behind that woman who seems defenseless and fragile, there may be something more. There may be a story. There may be a surname. There may be someone who is waiting, someone who does not forget, someone who does not forgive. And when that someone acts, when that surname becomes present, when that story comes to light, there is no turning back, only consequence. And those consequences, as those 3 young men discovered, can be permanent. If you got here, if you listened to the whole story, if you stayed until the end waiting to know exactly what happened that night, let me tell you something. You are never going to know it for sure, because that is the nature of these stories. There is never an official version. There is never confirmation, only rumors, testimonies, contradictory versions, and a silence that says more than any word. The only thing that remained clear, the only thing that no one disputes, is that something happened, something that changed that town forever, something that made people understand that there are lines that are not crossed. And the clearest line of all was that. Do not mess with that family. Do not touch that grandmother. Do not underestimate surname, because behind the tenderness there is power. Behind the old age there is protection. Behind the silence there are consequences. And those consequences presumably were collected that night of August of 2017, in a way that no one saw, in a manner that no one confirmed, but that everyone understood, because sometimes, in these forgotten towns of Mexico, in these places where the law does not always arrive and where justice is done in other ways, the most impactful stories are those that are never told completely. They are those that remain in the air, in the looks, in the silences, in the warnings that are passed from generation to generation. And this was one of those stories, the story of 3 young men who mocked the wrong little grandmother, who crossed the line they should not cross, who underestimated whom they should not underestimate, and who learned in the hardest way possible that in this world there are consequences. There are always consequences. If this story left you thinking, if it made you feel something, if it kept you hooked until the end, then on the screen right now another video is appearing. Another story equally intense, equally real, equally chilling. Give it a click, listen to it, and let me know in the comments what you think. Yeah.